Hi again, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com, and this is another episode of Ask the Lawyer. Today, we're going to ask about brain injuries and the complications that surround them. And here to answer our questions is attorney John Romano of the Romano Law Group in West Palm Beach, Florida. He's been practicing law for almost 40 years, successfully litigated nearly every type of civil and criminal case. And John, thank you for making some time for us today. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here, and hopefully we can make this something that will really help a lot of people.
I'm sure it will. So we're talking about brain injuries. One of the things we hear from families of people who have brain injuries is how different they are from before the accident to after the injury. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What do you think they mean by that?
Sure. There are all types of brain injuries. Sometimes there is a catastrophic event and you have a person in a coma. That's not the kind of brain injury we're generally talking about. We're talking about those brain injuries where there may be a concussion, there may be some type of an event where the brain is severely moved within the confines of the skull to cause an injury. And then what happens is in the days and the weeks and the months that follow, the close family members, the close friends, they notice a significant difference. And they'll say things like, he thinks different. She no longer understands sarcasm. She's having emotional outbursts and never had them before. A different attitude, a different way of thought processing. So what they see is a different person. And in some respects, they're actually looking at an individual who was one thing before the event and a totally different person after. In some of our trials, we have actually tried these cases in a sense as wrongful death cases, taking the position that an individual was one person before the event. That person, in essence, has now vanished or died. And now, after the event, we have a totally different person. And it's the close family members, the friends that see these changes.
So that leads to my next question. Sometimes it could be things that the general public, people who aren't as close to these people, may not realize there are changes. Sometimes brain injuries may not outwardly be noticeable, correct?
Totally correct. That is spot on. And often what happens is a stranger may sit down and talk to the person, and at least in the first minute or two might not even realize there's any type of a brain injury. But as the moments go on, as an interview might go on, or talking to that person, that individual who's asking the question readily begins to see this is someone who has a severe problem, and now they start to see it.
What are some of the frustrations that the brain injured goes through? What are some of the difficulties they face?
Well, one is, frankly, that they feel as though no one understands them anymore. You hear brain injury patients saying things like, why doesn't anybody care about me anymore? Why won't people listen to me? Why won't people pay attention to me? Why, when I talk to people, are they looking away? Are they looking at their watch? And they sense a frustration that something is going on with them, and it's their fault as to why everybody else is acting different towards them. And they become very frustrated, sometimes angry outbursts out of nowhere. These are outbursts that they didn't see before. So you do have a different person dealing with a different personality.
And I think we all can understand that there are frustrations and difficulties for the person who's suffered the brain injury, but the caregivers and the families have their own set of difficulties and frustrations, do they not?
Oh, it's so tough for the family members and the caregivers. You see, if I'm in an accident of some sort and I break my hand or I break my arm, a doctor, a family member, they know exactly how to identify what's wrong with me, how to help me fix it, how to get through it. It's easily identifiable for the most part. In a brain injury, it's not like that. It's more difficult to identify. It's more difficult to determine the extent of the brain injury and how it's going to affect that human being throughout the rest of his or her life. So what happens is the family members and all of the caregivers have been dealt a difficult hand to deal with.
It seems to me it would also be a challenge for someone in your position, for if you have a case, a client you're working with who suffered a brain injury, there must be unique challenges and ways you have to deal with that as an attorney.
Well, that is so true. And an amazing thing is a significant percentage of brain injuries are missed not only by healthcare providers, but by lawyers. You see, if you go to sleep one night, you wake up the next morning, when you awaken, you perceive, you feel, you understand the concept that you were unconscious throughout the night in the sense that you were asleep. But all you got to do is go to a boxing match, go to an athletic event where you see an athlete knocked out. And 30 seconds later, the athlete awakens and says, "What happened?" And somebody says, "You were knocked out." And the athlete says, "I wasn't knocked out." The reason is, when we are made to be unconscious or knocked out because of trauma, we often do not even realize ourselves that we were unconscious, which is why so often people at the scene of an accident or a tragedy will be asked the question, "Were you unconscious?" And they say, "No, I never lost consciousness." So this entire concept of losing consciousness, not being conscious, it's important for the healthcare providers to understand it. It's important for the lawyers to understand it, and it must be explored. Because when people say things like, "I don't know if I was unconscious or not, but I saw stars, I was dizzy, I had my bell rung," these are all phrases of someone who suffered a brain injury.
Which means it's also important to have a law firm that has experience with these sorts of cases so they know what to look for.
Sure, because handling a traumatic brain injury case, a TBI case, differs vastly from handling a low back injury case. And sadly, a lot of lawyers who, let's say, a lawyer who might focus his or her practice on back injury and neck injury case, often they're not even looking for or exploring or thinking about a TBI case when that is exactly what may have happened.
So what would be your advice to the family members of someone who maybe suspects they've suffered a brain injury, or even they were in an accident that maybe often has brain injury? What's your advice to them when it comes to picking a law firm?
Well, let me go to the before the law firm decision.
Okay.
And that decision is, make sure you are getting the right care and treatment from good medical doctors, from good healthcare providers, neuropsychologists, neuropsychiatrists, osteopathic physicians, whoever the doctors or healthcare providers may be. Get the best care you can get. In choosing a lawyer, make sure, one, you are dealing with a lawyer who understands the importance of the client first.
Right.
Not his or her law firm first, not the law practice, not the bar association, not all these other things, but somebody who will focus on you as the client. Second, make sure you are dealing with a lawyer who has experience, knowledge in the handling of traumatic brain injury cases. And that doesn't mean a lawyer who says, "I settled a traumatic brain injury case." It means a lawyer who has handled many of them over a period of years. And it helps especially to have a lawyer who knows how to take these cases to verdict and to win these cases in front of judges and juries. Very important.
Well, John, you said at the beginning you were hoping you helped people, and I think you absolutely did. Thank you for your time today.
Great. Thank you for doing
And that's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been attorney John Romano of the Romano Law Group in West Palm Beach, Florida. Please take a second to click on the button at the bottom of the screen so you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want the best information about brain injury cases, or you're ready to choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, make sure to visit AskTheLawyers.com. I'm Rob Rosenthal for AskTheLawyers.com.